Imagine a fire so devastating that it turned Rome to ashes in just a few nights. What if I told you that the man behind this chaos was none other than Emperor Nero himself? Did he really order the destruction of his own city? Get ready to uncover the dark and surprising secrets of the Great Fire of Rome. What you think you know might be completely different from the truth. Let's find out together. To understand the magnitude of the fire, we first need to know what Rome was like in the 1st century. Rome was the capital of the Roman Empire, a bustling hub of culture, politics, and commerce. The city was filled with wooden buildings, narrow streets, and a dense population, making it a true powder keg waiting to explode. The inhabitants of Rome were constantly on the move, with bustling markets, grand temples, and the imposing Roman Forum. It was a vibrant yet chaotic city where wealth and poverty coexisted side by side. Rome was the heart of a vast empire that stretched for thousands of miles, with a population of about 1 million people. The contrasts were striking. On one side, luxurious palaces and monumental structures. On the other, densely populated neighborhoods with precarious housing. The urban fabric, built mainly with flammable materials like wood and straw, was an invitation to disaster. On the night of July 18th, 64 AD, the fire began in shops around the Circus Maximus, a large stadium for chariot races. The flames spread rapidly, fueled by strong winds and the highly flammable structure of the buildings. For 6 days and 7 nights, the fire consumed the city, leaving a trail of destruction and chaos. Witnesses described the horror of the flames, devouring houses and temples while the desperate population tried to save their lives and few belongings. The heat was so intense it seemed to melt everything in its path, and dark smoke covered the sky, turning day into night. The scene was apocalyptic. The sound of the flames, the screams of people, and the collapse of buildings echoed throughout the city. Many inhabitants fled to safer areas, while others tried to fight the fire with buckets of water and wet blankets. The speed with which the fire spread was astonishing, destroying entire neighborhoods within hours. The city, already a maze of narrow streets and alleys, turned into a veritable hell. But where was Nero during all this time? Historical accounts suggest that he was at his villa in Antium, approximately 50 kilometers from Rome. When he received news of the fire, he immediately returned to the city and, according to some sources, began organizing relief efforts, even opening his palaces to shelter the homeless. Nero also ordered the distribution of emergency supplies and coordinated firefighting efforts. However, there are conflicting reports about his true intentions and involvement, raising further suspicions about his actions during this crisis. Some sources claim that Nero climbed a tower to watch the fire, playing his lyre and singing about the destruction of Troy. This image of him as an insensitive artist amid the tragedy helped solidify his reputation as a heartless tyrant. On the other hand, some evidence indicates that Nero acted quickly to help those affected, which could be seen as a genuine effort to save his city. The truth may lie somewhere in the middle of these conflicting narratives. However, Nero's aide did not absolve him of accusations. Some theories suggest that he ordered the fire himself to clear land for building his luxurious Domus Aurea, Golden House. Others believe he wanted to recreate the fall of Troy on a grand scale, inspired by his love for art and theater. Some even see the act as a reflection of his madness or a desire for revenge against the senators who opposed his rule. These theories raise a crucial question. Why would he do this? Was Nero an emperor so deranged that he would destroy his own capital? Darker theories suggest the fire was part of a plan to consolidate his power, eliminating opposition and reshaping Rome according to his grand vision. The construction of the Domus Aurea, a vast palatial complex, shortly after the fire fueled these speculations. This luxurious residence, with its opulent halls, lush gardens, and even an artificial lake, seemed to be an expression of Nero's vanity and his desire to immortalize his name through architecture. After the fire, Nero implemented an ambitious reconstruction plan. He established new building regulations, with wider streets and buildings made of less flammable materials to prevent future disasters. This reconstruction plan included creating large public spaces and constructing monumental buildings, transforming the urban landscape of Rome. However, many saw these efforts as an attempt to erase his possible guilt, while others believed he genuinely wanted to modernize the city. The splendor of the new Rome was undeniable, but the shadow of suspicions about Nero's true motivation never completely dissipated. Nero also took the opportunity to introduce architectural innovations, such as the construction of concrete buildings that were more fire-resistant. The new Rome became a city of wide avenues and planned public spaces, reflecting the vision of an emperor who wanted to leave a lasting legacy. However, the costs of this reconstruction were enormous, and the population suffered from heavy taxes and property confiscations. Amid the chaos, Nero found a scapegoat, the Christians. Accused of setting Rome on fire, many were tortured and executed in horrific ways. Reports of cruel executions, such as Christians being burned alive to illuminate Nero's gardens, spread quickly, increasing the terror among the population. This persecution not only diverted blame from Nero, but also fueled public antipathy towards an emerging religion. The Christians became easy targets in a moment of desperation and the need to find culprits, and this brutality deeply marked the early history of Christianity. Accounts from the time describe scenes of horror: Christians being devoured by wild animals in the amphitheater, crucified, or covered with animal skins and thrown to the dogs. These public executions were meant to entertain the population and serve as a warning to anyone who might challenge imperial authority. The persecution also strengthened the identity and cohesion of the Christian community, which began to see its martyrs as saints and heroes. The main historical sources on the fire come from Tacitus, Suetonius, and Cassius Dio. Tacitus, in particular, writes that Nero watched the fire from the top of the Maecenas Tower, playing his lyre and singing of the fall of Troy. However, these accounts were written years after the event, raising doubts about their accuracy and possible political influences. Suetonius and Cassius Dio also describe Nero negatively, contributing to the image of a cruel and insane emperor. Analyzing these sources, it's important to consider the context and possible bias of the authors, who often had their own agendas when reporting events. It is essential to remember that Tacitus, Suetonius, and Cassius Dio wrote their histories during periods when the Flavian dynasty and subsequent regimes had interests in vilifying Nero to legitimize their own rule. This makes us question to what extent the descriptions of Nero were exaggerated or manipulated to serve political narratives. The quest for historical truth requires a critical reading of these sources, evaluating their motivations and contexts. For example, Tacitus was a Roman senator with senatorial inclinations, which may have influenced his negative portrayal of Nero. Understanding the political and personal biases of these historians helps us better assess the reliability of their accounts and the true nature of Nero's actions during and after the Great Fire of Rome. Nero is often portrayed as a mad tyrant, but some modern historians argue that he may have been the victim of a smear campaign. His acts of charity during the fire and the subsequent reforms suggest a more complex ruler than the popular stereotype. Perhaps he was a tragic figure, whose actions were misinterpreted or exaggerated by his enemies. The question remains, was Nero a malevolent emperor who destroyed Rome on a whim, or was he a misunderstood ruler who tried to save his city amidst chaos? To many contemporaries, Nero was seen as a patron of the arts, an urban reformer, and even a defender of the poor. His passion for music, poetry, and theater made him popular among the lower classes. However, his eccentric personality and extravagant behaviors alienated the Roman elite, who had much to gain from his downfall. The judgment on Nero is complex and multifaceted, varying according to the historical and social perspective of those analyzing him. It's possible that Nero, though imperfect, has been unfairly judged by history. So, was Nero really the villain behind the Great Fire of Rome? The truth may never be fully known, but one thing is certain. His figure and the fire will remain one of the most intriguing and debated chapters in history. The duality of his image, between villain and victim, reminds us that history is often written by the victors, and the true nature of Nero may be buried under layers of propaganda and bias. Reflecting on Nero's life and the events that marked his reign, we can see how the complexity of his actions and motivations creates a portrait that challenges simplifications. Nero remains a powerful symbol of the ambiguities of power, human vulnerability, and the dangers of one-sided narratives. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment on what you thought of the video and suggest new topics. Your participation is essential for us to bring even better content. See you in the next video. Bye.